right. Welcome to another episode of Take Foul. It's Saturday, December 14th, NBA Cup semifinal day, I guess, in Vegas. But for us, we are going to do a bit of a sort of bigger picture episode, kind of due to some of the conversations that are swirling around social media these days. Given that we are an NBA show, I thought it would be right to address sort of this conversation around, is the NBA dead? Is there an inherent problem with the NBA? And what are some fixes that people have proposed? And what are some fixes that we think might be, better for the product or for kind of the future of the league? So a few stats to start here. ESPN viewership is down 28% from last year through November 21st. That's the big one that's being thrown around on Twitter and TikTok right now. And that ESPN viewership is also down 48% from 2012. So I thought that it would be kind of best if we could go through the many things that people are saying and either sort of talk about them, see if they have any merit, and see why people might be feeling this way. And I think before we get into this discussion, I feel like this discussion ultimately isn't for people like us who like the NBA, like watching the product of regular season games specifically, and are tuning in sort of to less maybe important games. We're fans of our specific teams. We tune into those games as well. So I think this is more about the casual fan, right? Like the person who is sitting down and seeing a game that is going to be on ESPN or TNT and sort of saying, maybe I won't watch that tonight, right? Would you would you agree with that?
Yeah,
Fair.
I
So we're
think
taking it from the perspective of the more casual fan.
Well, I think it's more about, yeah, I think so. Yeah,
that's who
because
you're losing as viewers.
Okay.
the majority of people aren't like us, because I would say we're in the minority of NBA viewership, in terms of how really locked in people are to
Ball grinders.
the day to day. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's something that David Stern has talked about in the past of you can change anything and there'll still be this sector of fans that will always be there. And then, but you're at risk of losing some of the others, and that's maybe seems to be what's happening. I think the first thing I want to touch on is I do think that there is a difference in how the game is consumed, right? So younger fans, I think, are less inclined to sort of sit down and watch an entire game live on TV, right? So they're catching up on highlights on YouTube. They're looking at Instagram to just see clips, and or maybe they're even listening to a podcast and kind of keeping up with the storylines if they're more locked in, but still maybe not sort of sitting down and grinding tape, so to speak. I don't know. Do you think there's merit to that claim, in that I'm not sure if the NBA is actually losing popularity. I think the ratings are down and you can't deny that, but I'm not sure if the NBA is actually losing popularity.
Yeah, I would honestly go so far to say it's as popular as actually popular as it's ever been, but like I work with kids, they're not going to sit and watch a game. You're not going to have middle schoolers, high schoolers sitting watching games. They're going to be getting it from TikTok. They're getting it from YouTube Shorts. They're going to be getting highlights. That doesn't mean they don't like necessarily the product, but they don't have I don't know if it's an attention span thing, but they don't have the drive to watch it the way that would be reflected by like views on or like viewership on TV.
Yeah, like Nielsen ratings. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I don't think a lot of them like feel the need to watch because I think the narratives that they care about are all just like online and
Yeah.
like highlights and stat lines and like people talking on podcasts is mostly what they're interested in right now. So like,
And
yeah,
going off of kind of what Ike was saying, it's also they're not following teams. Like kids nowadays don't like have like necessarily favorite teams. They have like players that they like, right? And so some of those players, like especially like uh, being in Minnesota, a lot of these not a lot of these youths are necessarily Timberwolves fans, but they're still like LeBron fans, right? But you guys like some Ant fans, but they're not necessarily going to be tuning in for every Wolves game, right? That's like available for them, and so yeah.
Yeah, they'll sometimes maybe just look at the box score, see how Ant did, go look up his highlights package on YouTube, and kind of
Yeah.
determine what they feel is happening from there. Yeah, a little bit to back that up. The NBA has 89 million followers on Instagram, compared to the NFL, which is sort of like the prime American sport. That's ratings are untouchable pretty much, and that the NFL has 30 million followers on Instagram. I mean, part of that is that basketball is more of a global game, but also I think it does reflect kind of the viewership habits of the fan bases. I think, yeah. All right, you know what? We can circle back to this because I think it's an important topic towards the kind of fixing it thing. But let's get into some of these reasons that people are listing here. So the number one reason I would say that I'm seeing online is that teams are taking too many threes, right? Like the yeah, no, I mean, and it's true. It's backed up statistically. Teams are taking a higher percentage of threes than any time in NBA history. And it varies by team. Like the Celtics are the sort of prime example of this, with the team getting as many threes as possible. Part of it is it's an analytically sound model to shoot threes and layups. That's like those are the highest percentage. Well, high percentage in the paint, but also when you're shooting threes, it's better than the mid-range analytically. So a lot of teams have been relying on analytics, and we're sort of seeing kind of even more of a tilt in that direction. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this, and then I have some things.
You want to go first, Ike?
sure. I mean, I think kind of maybe people like correlate with like threes and like way more points with just less defense. So I think maybe there's like less that's implies less physicality, like less getting to the rim, less defense. So I think those are kind of like maybe like related.
Yeah, I would say number two
Which
reason is no defense.
I think, yeah, threes, no defense, kind of like are maybe just like huge reasons that go back to competition, which I think like or lack thereof, like people kind of relate like you not playing defense to you not caring about a game, which I think that's probably like the core roots, at least to this problem. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of just what I make of it.
Yeah, I think that's a dumb argument. But like with just like people saying too many threes, like what do we want to see? Paul Pierce do a pull up jumper? Like, is that a better product to seeing long twos and shit? It's like it's not like people aren't getting to the rack. It's just that they're cutting out. Like the idea of it's more of an analytically sound shot is that you're not taking long twos, which are just as hard. It's worth less points. It's
Yeah,
like I don't want to see a pull up mid range. I'd rather see someone take a three than that.
So this is perfect. This goes right into my point, and this is from the Hollinger and Duncan podcast, where they're sort of talking about this criticism, um, and this is from Nate Duncan. So in 0304, right, which is the first year that Cleaning the Glass started, like, doing these movement type statistics. Teams shot 18% of their shots as threes. So it's 42% now, right? So pretty dramatic shift there. But they shot 30% of their shots from long mid range, all right? So, like, just inside the arc. And so overall, that's 48% of their shots as jumpers. And actually, so this year, it's 39% of shots from three and 7.4% long mid rangers. Okay, so different statistics, whatever. So technically in 0304, there's still more jump shots being taken than there are now as a percentage of all shots. The difference is that sort of mid range shot, that sort of famous, like, what comes to mind is like Rondo driving and kicking to Kevin Garnett for that sort of signature mid-range shot. The difference is that that player, that whatever player's driving is kicking out to, is shooting a 23-foot three-point jump shot instead of a mid-ranger. Yeah, I think I'm with you, Mike. Like, I think it's like you'd rather I guess it's like, is there an inherent variability that's more entertaining to watching spot up mid-range jump shots as opposed to
I think
three-pointers?
also when you do have everyone on the 3-point line, that does make the drives in like way different. Like getting to the hoop in 2003, 2004 is
Yeah,
like
it's much more crowded.
infinitely more
Yeah.
difficult than getting to the rim now. So I think, I don't know this statistically, but like contested shots at the rim, I think, are probably like way, way down.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's also like a part of it.
Sure,
Yeah,
But
you
yeah.
can't just leave people anymore either, right? Because everyone,
yeah,
at least like for the most part, everyone can shoot, right? So
yeah,
Yeah, and I think something that like Bill Simmons and Rosillo and stuff talk about a lot is like this. There's this sort of yearning for the past that's been going on. With I don't know if you guys saw that sort of thing on Twitter that was like a compilation of like the Pistons that won the chip, and like T Mac, and like I don't know,
hmm,
all these sort of like mid 2000 stars. And it's funny because you look at that, and it's just a slower product where there's guys posting up for, and I actually like post ups, like I enjoy watching post ups,
Julius Randle.
but there's sometimes, but it's like there's like one guy doing something and nobody's moving around them, whereas offenses are so much more dynamic in the NBA right now.
I, yeah, I completely agree with you. Like that Pistons team, like Ben Wallace is not fucking seeing seeing the court on a lot of these teams nowadays.
No, yeah, and I think that's another thing that another guy, I think Sam Vecini, made this point, was like, do people maybe want to watch like less skilled role players because um you know everyone that gets on the court can, for the most part, sort of shoot, dribble, and pass, right? And there's a lot of exceptions to this, but for the most part, if you're getting in on the court, you can do all those things moderately well, or you're exceptional at a different thing, right? Um, Whereas like I don't know if like Reggie Evans is seeing the court in
Listen,
2025.
listen. Maybe
It's like,
not Reggie Evans,
do
but like Ben Wallace is like,
I
he
was
was like in,
exaggerating.
yeah,
come
yeah,
on,
I
like
sure.
he's a
he,
six
no, no, no,
eight
I'm
center.
not. He could be like like he's a perfect version of like Jared Vanderbilt, who could play like starting center and get like every rebound with also being able to defend and switch onto like a perimeter guy.
I was exaggerating with the Ben Wallace. That I was.
Yeah,
Listen.
Ben Wallace.
Well, this is
Defensive
also
Player of the Year.
kind of the part of it where like I think it's a lot more rare now to see the guys like it's kind of an exception to the guys who go 100%, 100% of the time, and like Ben Wallace was that. I mean, like Vanderbilt kind of Pat Bev like was an exception. I don't really.
If you drop a guy like Sochan into the 2003, is he MVP?
No.
I mean, he still can't shoot, so I don't know. Maybe he was more built for that era. The other thing that has been talked about is this is something where I think that people want the NBA to be failing, is this notion that it's too political. So I do think there's some inherent sort of bias as to like what you want to happen if you think the NBA is too political. With that being said, during the bubble, the NBA came completely staunch on the side of the Black Lives Matter movement, and has sort of been on the forefront of that, a lot of these like social justice issues, and haven't been afraid to talk about them in a lot of ways. Also on Israel, I will say. But I think there, like, could there be some guy in rural Oklahoma who was like, I was going to tune in to the NBA, but they're too political now, so I am not going to watch? Maybe.
I think maybe. I mean, the NBA and like LeBron James specifically definitely didn't follow like the Michael Jordan like everyone buy shoes strategy.
Republicans buy Jordan.
Yeah.
Right.
Which, I think there probably is a general like resentment from a lot of the country to like LeBron and Steph Curry maybe specifically.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know how much that affects the numbers, because I don't know how much like the average like kind of not swing voter but more central, like less like Black Lives Matter, like I don't know how much that affects their enjoyment of basketball. Like I can't imagine it's a huge.
Yeah, I mean, if you
pusher.
like basketball, you're gonna watch basketball, I think. But like there are probably some people out there that were like, oh, they're pushing this stuff that I don't agree with. I'm going to turn it off in a form of protest.
Yeah, I do think that exists 100%. And there's like seemingly media people who are trying to like fuel that. Like a lot.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, like Clay Travis. Mike?
Yeah. I think I'd agree where I think it's like definitely a possibility, but again, that's just fucking stupid.
Yeah, I'd say it's low on the list.
You have a league made up 95%. Yeah, it's 95%, or like probably more than 95% Black athletes. Like what?
Yeah, what
do you expect?
What do you think was going to happen?
You talk about like the NFL, where
That's
it's
true.
not 95%, but like
still high.
I think. Yeah, I think the social rights are a lot more, or social issues are a lot more locked down. And
I feel like it's kind of because the NBA is more of a player-focused league than the NFL has ever been. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of like football is also an incredibly Southern sport.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
So like, I think it's a lot.
Yeah, it's probably the general viewership probably leans a little bit more conservative than basketball.
Viewership and like actual members of the league too.
Certainly, yeah. So and I don't know, I don't know if the league like cutting down on all political speech, I guess, would necessarily.
I don't think it would
lead to higher viewership. I don't think so. I think the people that were like the NBA is too political are gone, and maybe weren't really there to begin with. this one is interesting. Is load management. A lot of people, I think it's a common experience for a lot of people around the country to tune into a big nationally televised game, or even worse, get tickets. For instance, like yesterday, my
Yeah,
cousins.
I literally know someone too. Yeah.
Yeah, my cousin and my uncle went to the Wolves game, and fully, expecting to see LeBron James, who was not there for personal
Personal reasons.
reasons.
Yeah, it's just like what?
Yeah, and we don't know what's going on there. There's some speculation that he just wanted to take a longer vacation, sort of with this kind of NBA Cup hiatus. He's also 40, but with that being said, like, we can get into the solutions later on, but there are just a ton of NBA games that really wear on players' bodies. And then also there's certainly a team-wide and a league-wide focus, I would argue, although they're trying to implement some things that go the other way, on emphasizing the playoffs and de-emphasizing the regular season. So teams feel they can load manage, but who that affects the most is the fans, and I think that does affect viewership. If you tune into a game and the stars aren't playing, you're probably not going to watch that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just like, this LeBron thing, it's like, it was announced a day before the game that he's not playing. It's not related to his injury. And when they ask JJ Redick about when he's going to be back, JJ Redick just says, I don't know. Like, that's not.
Yeah, it's
like,
weird.
you can't do that in football, like any league, really. Like, I think it does all come back to like 82 games and LeBron having played 20 years in the league, knowing that it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
they might be out of the play-in though.
Yeah, but
I would agree. I do think that the amount of games aspect is a real like hindrance on the viewership, because some people don't really care about the NBA until like those Christmas games come out, right? That's like the first day people like start tuning in, right? I think if you look at like the model that the MLB has, like they have far too many games. Like no one gives a fuck about baseball, and people who even like baseball don't care the fuck about baseball until October or September. Like it just creates such a time period within the season that like it's like like who like these games, how much do they really weigh out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we'll definitely circle back on that point later when we're talking about fixes. So this one was interesting. Let's hit this. There's too many upper income players. So this is just another sort of objective fact about the NBA, is that the player base is coming from better and better, more affluent families. And it has to do with access to things like AAU, being able to allocate resources and time to bring your kid to AAU games, getting a personal trainer, more so than past generations in the NBA, where there are a lot of players that, made it out the mud, so to speak, and kind of got to the NBA through, maybe not the best circumstances that were optimized to kind of developing their skills. And so what this person was arguing was that this sort of leads to kind of less hunger for playing hard every night, and kind of getting out there, and because that's sort of what these past players like had to leave it all out there to get to where they are, which I think could be true. And then that at the same time, there's less characters, and that part of this sort of maybe more affluent upbringing is a sort of self-awareness and media training that kind of makes the players sort of establish their own brands early with things like NIL, and being sort of stars and having media access in high school, to being less interesting as stars, I think. And something that I heard someone, I think some podcasts talk about was maybe being a basketball player is this sort of AAU kind of upbringing makes a better basketball player, but it actually doesn't necessarily make a better star. So we have less compelling stars right now is sort of the argument. What do you think of that, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I would actually really agree with that one because I don't know how much you guys know about like the AAU circuit nowadays, but it's a cesspool of just like of just kids showing up to like if you aren't on like the top team, you're just put in like back rooms and like have to like just pay thousands of dollars to play in these garbage tournament. No one's really watching you, and like these coaches and program directors are just lying to kids to get them into their programs, and then it's just kids have bad experiences, and then kids kind of drop basketball altogether, right? So it's like it really is kind of separating like the kids who can afford to keep doing that versus the kids who can't, or the kids who are like good enough right away to be put on those best teams. Like you don't have kids who are going to be like, hey, maybe you didn't make it your 5th and 6th grade year, but they keep grinding it out, right? Because they're just told, oh, this is what you're worth, and this is where you're going to be at.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it does kind of cut that aspect of it out. Right. It's like just kind of it's pushing kids who maybe could become great away from basketball because they're told at such a young age that, hey, you're not good enough to play on this top team. So we're just going to put you in this like church basement gym while everyone else is at this other court at this high school. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it kind of does go back to, though, like the difference between basketball now and basketball 20 years ago, where like kids are way more skillful because that's like the emphasis all of growing up is like shooting, like like it's just so different, and maybe it's better in terms of skill but not necessarily like watchability. And like there were more characters 20 years ago. Like, yeah, I don't know how you want to balance like trying to make the players better and like less cookie cutter, but
and
I think
some of that, and I feel like kind of with that is like some of that passion is kind of gone because of AAU. Like they're playing in tournaments every weekend. They don't care if they win or lose. Like they're moving high schools like every season. Like they're not like working with the same group of guys for 4 years to try to like win their district or whatever. They can just go to a different place. You know, it's like I'll give them the next. And there's no shame in that for the kids because that's just how they need to be able to get noticed. But it's just kind of I think it changes the priorities.
I don't really know how you necessarily fix that, like through coaches, though, because like I think the objective of every single coach is to like develop like the skills that like are going to make him the best player. Like I don't know how you tweak what you tell a coach to coach, or like what you say to a coach about
I think
that.
there's got to be like, and this is a different conversation kind of surrounding like youth basketball, but there's got to be rules against like even this OT shit that they do. Like this, I think this is kind of like I think it's kind of bullshit beyond. But like I don't think there should be schools like fucking IMG that just take the best kids from like random states and have them travel around on a national circuit. I think that's kind of bullshit. You know, it's like I think that there should be more strict rules on like where kids can go play basketball based off where they live. You know, like I don't think kids just be going to these made up like high schools that just like
I
don't
think
actually
that
teach.
goes like a lot. That probably goes a
deeper.
lot farther than basketball. You know,
Yeah, but
like educate. Yeah, I don't know.
I think there is sort of a point about how kind of the player empowerment movement in the NBA has sort of bled down to like things with the transfer portal in college, and then what you're referring to in youth basketball,
highlight culture too.
Yeah, and maybe there is so much that centers around the players that sometimes the fans are cut out at times
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
a product, I guess. Yeah, I think this point about there's like less characters also kind of showed itself in this Netflix show Starting Five. I watched about 2.5 episodes of it. And Anthony Edwards is a good character. He says what it's on his mind. He's funny. He's sort of naturally charismatic. LeBron, Jimmy, Tatum, and Sabonis are just snooze jobs. Especially Tatum and Sabonis. I would say like you the only thing that you learned about Jason Tatum is like, oh yeah, I love my family.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
Yeah.
fascinating.
About Deuce.
Yeah, like I love God and I love my family. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
What a compelling character. So
That's another thing though, where like there's what do you do to fix? That's just like such a huge fix, like a
that's a
not
systemic one.
conceptual. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think there can be conversations around like access to basketball.
He went to like one.
Right?
He went to a
Like,
prep school. He went to the same one as Bradley. I think Bradley Beal went to, like in Missouri or whatever.
Who?
He went to a prep school. Jason Tatum.
Yeah. I mean,
then he
Jimmy and
ends up
LeBron are more
going
of
to
this other generation of stars. I think this previous generation of stars, but still.
I mean, LeBron's like definitely had like Final Cut and like would never like knows exactly what he's saying at all times if there's a camera on him.
Okay, let's get through the last couple ones. Bad atmospheres at arenas. I think this one's
Wouldn't know.
What?
Wouldn't know.
Yeah. I mean, growing up in Minnesota, there's some certainly some empty games
right
that
now.
we went to. Yeah, right now
that was all. That's what they deserved. That's how it should be.
I mean, I remember us and like the 300 people that were there were fucking going nuts after that Chase Budinger game-winning layup.
You could hear the guy who spent $4 to sit in like 215 screaming at LeBron James the entire game. Those people had voices.
Yeah.
But that was all related to the play on the floor.
Right. Right. So that was a really bad team. A number of bad teams.
Yeah.
And I think that's a tough one because it's going to be hard to replicate like a big basketball college's atmosphere,
student section.
The Clippers wall section has not been impressive. Like the 3 or 4 games I've watched.
Yeah, living out on the East Coast, the Clippers game is always like the late game, and my girlfriend falls asleep, and I will watch the second half of the Clippers game. And that I mean, there's like
I think the wall was there. It's like 8 dudes going like LAC that you like can kind of hear, and then you hear like the super piped in chants or whatever that they do.
Maybe some paid actors there as well.
Yeah.
So but I do think there's a wider conversation about ticket prices. And how every year they just go up and up and up, and obviously it's like there's inflation and things get more expensive inherently. With that being said, I do think it is a little ridiculous at times when I live close by the Barclays Center, and when there's a crappy team in town, for a lower level ticket to be over $100 is
yeah,
I don't know. Like that doesn't feel right. And I think a lot of fans are feeling that way as well.
Yeah, it's just like when you see, this is like a constant complaint that I don't know how, like if you can, but like how do you have just like 70, 60%, that might be a bit much, like empty stadiums, and then like just enforcing like seating like at old
That's the
Timberwolves
craziest
games.
part about it.
Like just
It's
being
there's-
Nazis
Dude,
about
so
that,
true.
and then
This is a great point.
like, and then like, yeah, charging like $80 to sit like 5 rows off the court when you could walk down there after 30 seconds into the game after spending like $4.
You should be
Figure it
funneling
out.
everyone closer after the game starts.
Yeah.
If their still seats aren't like so.
Yeah.
Like, it makes no sense why you'd want open seats lower built. Like, it just like baffles me.
I also had a business idea of, this is probably not feasible, so feel free to steal this. But having the tickets just go down dramatically in price as the game moves
So you can
forward.
buy it like live moment.
Yeah, so it's like if I live at Barclays, or if I live within like a 20-minute walk of Barclays Center, I could, I see the Nets tickets are, half off at halftime.
Yeah.
I'd be like, whatever. Let's
I don't get
an
like
hour.
why teams don't do that. It's like just make it cheaper. You'll sell like, I mean, they must have models where they don't think it makes sense, but like, I don't get it. Like charging $90 for a lower deck seat the entire time, and a lot of it is resale. So I guess you would, I don't know.
Right. Yes. I mean, it's hard to control, but
yeah,
whatever.
We got into the WNBA finals for Upper Deck for like the finals for like $95 a ticket.
Yeah, that was pre Caitlin Clark era, though, right?
No, that was this year.
Oh, that was this year.
We
Oh,
went to
okay.
this finals with the
nice.
Lynx. Yeah. And the stadium was rocking.
Yeah. Hey, great atmosphere for Liberty games, I will say. Much more than Nets games.
Fuck those Liberty, those shits.
yeah. Scum and
I've never been, but that's what I hear. Okay, so part of this is also that there's too many subscriptions to watch games. I think that's more of a sort of cord cutting kind of larger conversation around like, is it actually cheaper? But I do think like the League Pass blackout thing is very antiquated, and the fact that like these regional sports networks who are hemorrhaging money, you either have to have a cable subscription or you pay like a direct-to-consumer thing that is going to be more expensive, or even a comparable price to League Pass, is a little ridiculous. And I think the NBA could be doing something about that as well.
Do you know what the setup is like for next year? Like what Prime and Peacock, is that just going to be like, again, like certain games?
Yeah.
That's just like, because like the NHL right now has like literally every game on ESPN streaming.
Right.
So unless it's like local, I wasn't sure if they were.
No, I would assume that it's going to be a similar model with like League Pass. And League Pass local blackout as well. So
I guess like having League Pass be its own thing might not, or like probably doesn't help. Because like nobody subscribes to League Pass, like people subscribe to ESPN, who then like also happen to have every NHL game.
Right.
Yeah, that's what. Because like the only sports thing I subscribe to is like to watch ESPN, and you get every single college basketball game, like every college basketball game on TV, like men's and women's. You get every college football game. I would watch ESPN, but like for NFL and for the NBA, like I'll just illegally stream it. Like it's so easy, and I feel like that's also where kids in high school and college, like they're not going to pay for that shit. They're just going to go on Reddit, type in Reddit NBA streams.
Careful. We'll be knocking at your door soon. Yeah, I think that those are valid. I'm hoping. I've sort of said this sentiment before, but I'm hoping like Amazon just buys all the regional sports networks and then throws them on Prime, and you can just like not have a local blackout and watch your team's game. I think this local blackout thing also goes back to something you were saying earlier, Mike, where kids are fans of stars and players and not their local teams. And I think, part of that is because this access is just more difficult for your local team, which is ridiculous because it's over the air for Vikings games, right? Like it's like you don't even need cable to watch a Vikings game.
Yeah,
And
I was gonna say I'm not necessarily sure what you're talking about totally because I like never have to deal with the local blackouts.
right, so on League Pass, right? Like
You can't watch like the
I
Nets.
can't watch the Nets or the Knicks, right? And
Yeah.
when I'm in Minnesota, I go on the League Pass app. I can't watch the Timberwolves on the League Pass app because of the like there's a you know
Yeah.
a deal with the local cable company, the local regional sports network, to broadcast on cable, and it's to like prevent people, I don't know, whatever. It's a League
Yeah.
Pass thing, but I think they could expand access to people in a more accessible way that it doesn't require like does feel a little ridiculous if you're paying $17-18 a month to watch your like one basketball team, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's talk about some fixes. And before we get there, I think I want to say like I don't know how much the NBA is worried about this,
Yeah.
right? Because the TV
You don't
deal,
know?
what?
So you don't know how much they're worried about it?
Yeah, I don't know how much the league itself is actually worried about the ratings going down, because the TV deal has been secured and they don't have to worry about it for 11 years, right? And
Yeah.
who knows what's going to happen next year, let alone 11 years from now. And this problem was sort of pre-existing before the TV deal was signed, like ratings going down since 2016 probably. And it's sort of unclear, but ESPN, NBC, Amazon, they're all willing to shell out millions and millions of dollars for less games, essentially. So there's no guarantee of them doing that again, but it seems like the advertisers were willing to back this product that, the ratings are going down, but it seems like everything's okay. So does the NBA actually care about the ratings going down is a valid question, I think.
I don't think it's something that they're urgently worried about at all, especially considering they just signed that TV deal.
Yeah.
Uh, I saw something that Adam Silver said he's like not worried about it, and that like they don't even like compare themselves to like sports leagues at this point. They compare themselves to like international brands because they were like a top 5 like search, like just NBA and like NBA content was like a top 5 search in the world like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So like he keeps harping on this like social media stuff kind of where he's
Absolutely.
like, this is where our focus is. Like this is I don't know.
And he might just be right too. Like at the end of the day, like
Yeah, I mean it's all about
does it
revenue.
matter all that much? Like if
Right.
they but like if they are getting like if they do already have that deal signed, right, and they are like produced like for online like there is some sort of like revenue I'm sure that they're taking in from being so actively like sought after. So like maybe they're just first ones in line to like be jumping to that next kind of wave of consumerism in which like it's not about TV views, it's about how much people are like interacting with your product online.
Right.
I think
Go ahead.
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Okay. So it's like it's impossible to compete with the NFL sports wise because there's 17 games, and like it's appointment viewing, right? And it's just like ingrained in so much of culture. But it's but what the NBA is essentially competing with is everything that is available to stream, essentially, right? Like you sit down on your couch at the end of the day and you're like, okay, do I lock in on Hornets Pistons or maybe I watch like a Netflix show, you know, or a show on Max or whatever. So like maybe it's right to not sort of obsess over TV ratings, which does, I don't know how they get those analytics, and it still does feel like an antiquated way of looking at things, especially because TV ratings in general have been going down for everything outside of football, including news, including, you know, other sort of network TV. So I think maybe he is right to not necessarily worry about that. With that being said, we are going to fix the NBA.
Can I toss one more problem?
Go ahead.
This is 60 to 70% serious. It is way worse to gamble on the NBA than the NFL.
It's so fucking frustrating to gamble on the NBA. It's such bullshit.
Like, be it games or player props, like it's kind of goes back to the same issue where like, oh, like if they're losing at the end of the third quarter, they might just stop trying. Like you can't, it's so much less dependable in terms of effort and like consistency.
Yes, but what I would counter that with is that in the modern NBA there are such vast amounts of swings in runs that like if a team is down by 20 at the end of the third quarter, they could very well win by 20 as well.
Yeah, that's true.
That happens on a nightly basis.
All right, there's not 40-point swings on a nightly basis entering the fourth quarter.
Okay, fine. A nightly basis is an exaggeration, but a weekly basis easily.
Yeah, but like going to like player props and stuff like that, like going into an NFL game, you might be like, I don't trust this guy because he's not like that good. Going into an NBA game, you just be like, I don't trust this guy because he might not try, and it's like,
or he might just kind of sit the last,
or
two
not
thirds,
necessarily
like
not
game.
try, but just like something weird might happen where like you don't necessarily know that he's gonna play the entire game.
Yeah,
but wouldn't you say that like a running back easily could like twist their ankle or something, and you?
But it never feels like it's because like they're not. It always is like maybe an injury, but like they're always
feels
trying
more
to
real.
compete.
Yeah,
Where like with the NBA, you see like James Harden, you bet like over 40 combined, whatever, and he's like walking down the court when you need him to get like 15 more.
Another rebound.
Like, God fucking damn it.
And you're just begging him to get an assist. He's just standing in the corner.
Standing in the corner. All right.
Pouting in the corner.
All right. Yeah. Fine. Yeah. Throw it down on the list. Okay. So let's get into some fixes before we get out of here. I think the thing that everyone agrees on is less games, right?
Which is just like the worst thing because there's no way it's gonna happen.
Yeah. I guess so. You know,
because like there's no way they sign like an 11-year TV deal and then they're like, all right,
season,
fewer games.
But those are the TV deals are with the nationally televised games. I think those companies would be willing to do that. It wouldn't. I doubt it would take away anything from the nationally televised games. I think there could be an equal number of nationally televised games, and cut down on the 82 game season.
But they don't make money from like local networks.
No, because the local networks, the regional sports networks, have a different TV deal with the NBA.
Okay,
I don't know where that's at, but that's it's a different deal.
Okay, I do. Yeah,
I have a pretty real fix I've been thinking about. So you could do this two ways, right? You could have it only be like throughout the whole season, and it's kind of go with shrinking games. The Western Conference only plays the Western Conference. The Eastern Conference only plays the Eastern Conference. Kind of like how they used to do baseball, right? And then like finally they meet in the finals, right?
Mhm.
It would kind of make those games mean a little bit more, and it could. And you mentioned something about rivalries in the text earlier, and we didn't really talk
Oh
about that.
shoot, yeah, missed that
But
one.
like
Well, actually,
I
I
feel
have
yeah,
something about this, but go ahead.
okay, because I feel like teams don't have that. Like, who gives a fuck about division games? No one gives a god. Like, no one cares at all about like playing teams in your divisions anymore, right? Or my other thing was split the league in half, like top and bottom, and have a relegation system where the top two and bottom two flip after the season. Um, and I think that
With
might
the
make
G League.
yeah, but like you don't have to add more teams. Just go like or like add like make it 20 and 20. I don't know, but yeah,
I see. I see. Split the league into two and make it
yeah,
a
yeah,
relegation system. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, and then make the bottom half teams play in their G League affiliate stadiums.
Yes. Yeah. They don't get, like the Bulls don't get to play at the United Center anymore. They're
Yeah,
going to fucking
yeah. Or they have to play outside or something.
we're going to Gary.
Yeah. Yeah, so my fix was a similar thing, and I think this would be sort of under the presumption that they won't, they will not cut games, right? I think, the divisions should matter. And it's something that I think about sometimes is how, Mike, you don't necessarily care about the success or the failure of the Timberwolves, but you absolutely are invested in the success or the failure of the Vikings because of that divisional rivalry and how much the divisions matter, right? Yeah, exactly. So, and vice versa, but like to introduce more of a playoff model with divisions, I think could be really helpful, and then maybe cut down on some of the other, every team plays the other conference or the same conference teams like 4 times, right? Like cut down on those games, increase the divisional games, and then make the divisions matter in terms of the playoff seeding. And I actually don't really understand how the divisions work in the NFL, but I feel like there could be a model from that.
A similar one, yeah.
Yeah, that would
It's
work.
like every team that wins a division gets a home game, and it's like seeded from there.
Right.
So like it would be like the top four
Yeah, I think that would
would
be
be
great.
division
And then
winners.
it
Yeah.
would be those divisional games would matter more than anything, and it would be electric, I think.
Yeah, I think they did like a light version of that with like the NBA Cup, where
Yeah,
they
but they didn't
kind of
even split them into divisions. Like they split them
yeah, it
into
was
these
just kind of
randomized
random.
groups,
Yeah,
and it was a great opportunity to make them divisions. But maybe this should be a thing that comes after expansion, and presumably they'll have these 4-team divisions like the NFL, where they could kind of implement something like this. What do you say, Mike?
I do love that, but I also think they got to reconfigure where each team is, what division teams are in. Because like right now, like I don't even think the conferences necessarily make all that much sense with some of the teams unless I'm just map illiterate. But I guess it also impacts like teams that have moved in the past that didn't necessarily switch over
did you
conferences.
know Detroit is further east than Atlanta, Mike?
I know I've seen that. I've seen that a lot on Twitter and TikTok over the past. It's crazy. It's
Whoa.
nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, there will be some flipping around of one of the Western Conference teams.
Like the Wolves should not be in the same
Wolves.
division as the Trailblazers.
Well,
It makes no sense.
so for East and West, if they do expansion, it would be like 2 new West teams, probably like the
Seattle
Sonics
and
and
Vegas.
like Las Vegas. So I think you could probably kick out like Memphis and New Orleans.
No. You'd only do one.
Or yeah,
If they're adding,
yeah. So you'd add one. Wait,
You're adding
one
two-
Western Conference team would go to the East, and then
yeah,
it's 50. Yeah, you're right.
and then
yeah.
they'll be balanced.
So I think Memphis.
No, The Timberwolves should be in the Eastern Conference.
You're staying in the West, Sam, and you're gonna like it.
No.
You just gotta hope
and then
that
it'll be the Wolves, Milwaukee, Chicago, and Cleveland.
Detroit.
Yeah, and
It should just be that's the perfect division. Like that is the most understandable division.
Geographically makes sense, and then maybe there'll be some like rivalries.
It does kind of suck that like Minnesota and Wisconsin are in different conferences.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Like it's always been kind of like
it's like you have 3 teams in the same fucking lake. Like it just makes itself.
It's true. Yeah. So some things that people have proposed as fixes: moving back the 3-point line or eliminating corner threes.
Can I tell? I saw one suggestion to move the 3-point line forward.
Oh,
just make it like a straight line.
No, just make it a college 3-pointer. Clot everything up.
Clunk it up a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like,
wait, can I talk about getting rid of the? So they're saying like just draw the 3-point line so it goes out of bounds before the corners.
Correct.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was like that would destroy like how the game,
careers,
like the entire geometry of the game would just completely change. Yeah. I do think there is an interesting conversation as to like if they expanded the court horizontally and had the corner threes be the same distance.
They could just make the court like 1.5x bigger.
That might be a little dramatic. And then play 11s.
Play 11s.
Or go like baseball. Every team just make their court however they want.
Baseball, yeah.
Some other fixes: making dunks count as 3 points. To encourage
that everyone can dunk.
Right, yeah. So
Rudy Gobert is now an analytic monster.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. Yeah, Rudy Gobert, leading scorer in the NBA. Making threes count as 2.5.
I'm not doing all that math. That's crazy.
I like it.
It's like half points. I'm not so sure about. I think also like this is sort of going back to what we were talking about earlier with like this obsession over threes when the same number of jump shots have been taken, whatever. Another thing that is a sort of hobby horse for me, and you guys know this, but I think they should get rid of a timeout. I think they should get rid of the challenges, and like I think there's a ton of, especially with ESPN, especially because the ESPN viewership numbers are what we're talking about here, is like, the ESPN halftime, I think they have like a minute, during the finals.
30 dudes.
Yeah. And it's like, why just squeeze so much? It does feel like when there's a close game on national TV, there's just as much squeezed out of that time because there's the most eyeballs on the game during that last part where there's so many commercial breaks, and it just feels so short-sighted, and so many reviews, and like it just feels like they're trying to milk as much as that out of there while hurting the product.
I don't hate the idea. I wish they could do something like the NFL does with like expedited challenges. Where like when teams challenge, do they do that kind of a little in the NBA? Like sometimes when it's so obvious that they like don't even make the refs go to like the screen.
No, it's always the they have people like they have refs upstairs who like can overturn the call of the ref on the field.
Yeah, no, there's a replay center in Secaucus that the refs are always talking to whenever the green light goes off. But sometimes it does go quicker than others, But
every time the refs go to monitor, right?
Yeah, they still have to go and talk to the people at the monitor, regardless of how long it takes. but yeah, I don't know. I think they could cut down on the speed of that as well.
Yeah, the way they bring out the monitor, the refs like put on 2 pairs of headphones, like
and
talk
like
us
you
through
know,
it
and then
for
like
2
Bill
minutes.
Kennedy's like the play is being challenged.
You should only be able to look at it once
guy.
at normal speed, and if they don't see anything egregious, then it's no change.
Also, this is a small thing. I know we're going long, but I hate the fucking thing where someone like a ball is knocked out of someone's hands and then they do it on super slow motion. So like when maybe the last little fingernail is on like the player's hands, those ball it gets knocked out of, and they like it. That's so stupid. You know, that's so dumb. It's not basketball. Okay. Any other fixes that you want to talk about? I have a thought that it might all just fix itself when Cooper Flagg comes into the league and
the savior.
Yeah, and suddenly
brings all those whites back.
Yeah, suddenly the right wing is extremely
Great white hope.
just locked in on you know like
when he's on the Pelicans
Hornets basketball. Yeah.
I was gonna say just like fine dudes for not playing, but they just don't give a shit.
Like what's $5,000?
I mean,
I see the fines.
Yeah, they're also trying to like do stuff with the 65 game rule with the awards and stuff, but it doesn't stop Embiid from being like, I don't care.
I see like Anthony Edwards get fined like $15,000 for just walking by like a fan and flicking him off. And it's just like, you don't give a shit.
No.
Ron Artest beat the fuck out of people back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, he was suspended. All right, I have some closing thoughts. First of all, something that I've been thinking about is like maybe we don't want to get in the trap of what happened with the Democrats and talking about the economy, right? Where, you know, a lot of people are feeling that the economy's bad, and the Democrats said, no, the economy's good. Look at like the GDP growth and the unemployment rate and all these, you know, economic metrics that we're looking at where people were at home were like, my lived experience is that the economy is bad. And I think that there is sort of this notion of kind of what we talked about with like the threes actually being okay, and like there's defensive versatility, and like maybe the NBA product for us isn't flawed, but maybe the main point and the biggest problem for the NBA is that everyone thinks that there's a problem with the NBA right now, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I think it would be silly to ignore this conversation. And I think they can't just sort of relax and sit on their hands and kind of let these social media analytics go when people aren't tuning into the product. So I will leave you with a quote from r/Bill Simmons. Regular guy, up working construction at 6 a.m. Couple nips of Seagrams in his Dunkin'. Down from 2 packs a day to 1. Comes home from work and jerks off with his calloused hand just to get it over with. Drinks a 12-pack of Busch and drives to his ex-wife's house and sits outside in the car a couple houses down for an hour just to see what she's up to. New boyfriend thinks he's hot shit because he's the boss at Cheesecake Factory and he's always bringing stuff home. Adam Silver doesn't have anyone like that in the room with him, so he doesn't know what that guy wants.
Yeah.
And what's worse is I don't think he cares.
No. That's really well put. You know what that guy
just
also
wants the mid-range too. That's all he's asking for.
He wants the mid-range too. He wants hardwood that is the color of hardwood, not bright orange.
Mm-hmm.
Preach.
And less TikTok.
Yeah. Less TikTok. Thank you.
Last two are complaints that I also share, yes.
All right.
All right. Anyone else have anything further?
Yeah. So
All right,
then
I
Knicks
gotta
have
head
7
out,
and a half
Mike.
up.
I'm just
Yeah,
gonna cut you
alright.
off there
Yeah.
quick.